Hi. Okay, for those joining this live stream, we are talking about the de-experimentalization of experimental functions in Wolfram Language, and we have a variety of topics today, as usual. Let's see how far we get. First up is image processing. Oh boy. By the way, why on earth are these things looking so boy, that's a lot of don't de-experimentalize. Let's talk about all these functions.
Okay.
Okay, so image contents. What's happening with image contents?
We basically need to do a training of our own. We have a few networks that are converted, and we can use some of them. But the new ones like YOLO 9000, which is classifying or finding 9,000 classes of objects, is not good enough. The accuracies are not as good as we want them to be. We might be able to do a combination of those networks sooner, definitely before our own training, but the end goal is to train ourselves the net.
Okay. Is what happens, do we believe there's anything in the design of these functions that's problematic?
Earlier this morning, Julia and I were looking at a bunch of families that have categories or forms and props, and there are some inconsistencies if we want to look at them as well. We have image cases, text cases that take form goes to prop. These guys takes category, comma, prop. Then we have image identifier that is category, comma, n, comma, prop, and so forth. And it would be nice to make them consistent, yes.
Oh, gosh.
If you recall, we looked at image contents versus image cases, text contents versus text cases for 12.0. And these were the design we came up with. But looking at more functions at the same time, I think we might be able to make them a bit more consistent.
All right. Well, schedule something to look at that. But why don't you guys study it first? And yeah, I mean, what's the timescale for doing a new training?
Wouldn't be so quick. Julia and Jerome are going to be doing that. Jerome definitely needs to wrap up all the issues with neural net framework. Julio, I think, could be starting that fairly soon.
Okay. But I mean, what's a rough timescale? A month, 2 months? What are we talking about?
I would say maybe more in the scale of 3 to 6 months before we have something that can ship. It's not going to be full time, but
Okay.
from
Right,
data
fine.
gathering to training.
Let's try and get the design aspects of this clean, and let's make a big table of all of our, text, audio, image, I don't know, and cases itself, and so on.
Yes,
right?
Yes, because image
And string
cases, text
cases.
cases. Okay, string cases I didn't have. I'll add that to my list.
Are there any other cases functions that I'm forgetting?
No, we have with cases comes delete
Sequence cases.
Sequence cases is one. Speech cases goes with text cases.
Wow. That's erroring out in some bizarre way. With an argument null, and null is not a valid link object. This is running the latest 12.1, so somebody should report that. Raj, that's for you.
Yep.
Also, the fact that well, whatever. Okay. All right. Whew. These are all in the same bucket.
Yes.
Except for image pyramid, which is a completely different thing. I mean, I have no idea about image pyramid. Why do you want to add some? I mean, I don't understand. The fact that you want to add random functionality is not a reason to not de-experimentalize this. But I have no idea. I mean, I've never used this, so I can't really comment on whether it's, on how useful it is and whether this is the correct design.
I think the design is correct for what we have implemented so far. The type, which is the second argument, could be extended to accept more types like steerable or Reese and so forth. And at that time, maybe then the properties wouldn't be correct. But I'm not even keen on pushing all of them into the same function. Maybe they could be separate functions.
Oh, for goodness sake. Well, as far as I'm concerned, this is not something I've never used it. Does any other system function use it?
Yeah, this is the
What?
backend for dynamic image, for instance.
Okay.
And
Are
then
we using it are we using it for maps as well?
No, not this one. Maps are mainly taking tiles at the requested resolution or zoom level.
Okay.
But we also discussed within ourselves and with the front-end team to potentially improve the typesetting of image objects, especially if we start looking into out-of-core image or even in-core images. In order to make the image typesetting a bit more lightweight, it would be nice if we don't show all of the image pixels at the first go and just show as much as we need in a notebook.
Yes.
That, for instance, can use some image pyramid technology underneath.
That would be interesting. Okay. But so is the design that we have here ergonomically, I mean, as you try to use it, does it seem to work nicely?
Definitely. All of those just need Gaussian pyramids. It's just downsampling.
So I don't understand. If I make an image pyramid here, okay, so let's say I make an image pyramid, and then the use that you've given is a pure downsampling use.
Yep.
Right. So what you're storing, like in the file or something, is okay. So how do I get that picture at a certain sample level?
So in peer, it's by sub value. So peer part 1, peer part 2.
Okay, but what I want to know is, let's say I want image size 30 by 30.
Oh, that's inverse image pyramid.
Okay. So you're saying if I do this, well, that's not what I'm asking for. I'm asking for, I want to give an image size here.
So yeah, the only thing that is in the way is the type that you don't care to specify.
That's a bad design. I mean, look, the fact is, for the use case you're describing, let's talk about the packaging that would actually be useful for this. What you're basically saying is this is some kind of multi-scale image. And I don't care that it's an image pyramid or an image, diamond or anything. All I care about is that what I'm going to get is a multi-scale image, which I can then actualize as an image of a certain resolution. Right? So in other words, what I would like is to be able to say from a high resolution image, it's like, I could say something like, multi-scale image. I don't know, this isn't the right thing, but that then is the multi-scale image. And then to get it as a certain image size, I just ask it for that image size.
Right.
And then I get an image of that size.
So still you can do it with that last syntax of inverse image pyramid. So
yeah,
you
but
say,
yes, okay.
Pyramid, Gaussian, and then whatever, 100.
Okay, but that's silly. No. No.
That takes it as n, as the level n.
Okay, so
yep.
Okay, so then, all right. I mean, this is typical sort of hostile. No, okay, so
those are larger. That initial image is small, so you just don't get it larger. It doesn't upsample.
But it should. Look, the fact is we should have a function that simply multi-scales as a multi-scale image where, I mean, we have ways of upsampling using machine learning stuff, right?
or the classical stuff. Yeah.
How would we upsample this thing?
Just image resize 2000, and you increase the number of pixels. And not the pyramid, but that result.
That thing here.
Yep. Image resize.
Of that, comma what?
2000 that you asked for. And then the pixel dimensions of that is going to be 2000.
That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I mean, it's got random artifacts, but it's not bad at all.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about how to package this. Okay, because what you're describing is perfectly useful. It's basically storing an image in a multi-scale form so that it can be readily, retrieved at a particular size. So, I mean, for example, having image size be able to eat image pyramids seems like it will be useful.
Mm-hmm. Well, for that, we also have the image pyramid apply, where we apply a function to every level.
I don't care. I don't care. Look, you're telling me the actual use of this is to store multi-scale images.
Yep.
So let's make it easy. We're not applying any image pyramids to anything. We're just providing something which is a multi-scale image, and that's it. The simple thing, right? So the question is only, when we get an image, we could decide to multi-scale it.
Yep.
And then the different things that use it, like the front end, for example, can simply request it at different resolutions.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's even possible.
And you're thinking given a resolution higher than the originally provided sample.
Why not?
Okay.
Why not? Seems like a good idea to me. I mean, why not? We've got the technology. Why not do it? Why have something pixelated when we don't need to? So the question is, how do we package this, and how does it relate to the image object itself? See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I think it's very useful to have an image object which has a known number of pixels and so on. And it's possible that we should introduce something called multi-scale image, which would be, I don't know, because I mean, if you do an image processing operation on a multi-scale image, like an edge detect or something, clearly it cares about the actual individual pixel level.
Yes.
And the question is how to deal with that in a multi-scale image. In other words, what size it assumes that the thing is. Well, this is for a separate meeting, but this is the packaging we need, because this is what will actually make this useful. And I don't really care about the underlying image pyramid is for image processing experts.
Yep.
And potentially useful, but the really killer thing is, as you say, being able to have something where the actual display, I mean, clearly, if we wanted to right now, we could downsample images for display we could have perfectly well inside image, we could have an image display function which downsamples the image. You see what I'm saying?
Just for typesetting. Yep. Like the image size that, no, not just for typesetting.
No, for typesetting.
Okay, yes.
Image display function that could be image resize. And I mean, that we could implement right now. Right? So it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't know how fast image resize is, but that will be an interesting thing to look at right now.
Okay.
Now, the question is, when you typeset something like that, if what matters is the number of pixels, I don't even know what really matters. It's what's stored in the notebook that matters. Is that true?
That's definitely, yeah. That's definitely important.
Well, but I mean, then the question is, the high resolution image, where does it go? And when you resize it, is it using more image data than it was using? I don't know. We have to look at this. Okay, so get a meeting together about this and about image display function, multi-scale image, and how it's rendered in the front end. Maybe you can have one without me
Okay.
to start with. Okay.
Okay. No, we have started that discussion. It's just, again,
Okay.
one
And
of
in
those
addition, why don't you figure out what actually makes sense for the image pyramid functions, given that you're basically telling me their arguments are in the wrong order?
Not quite, but okay. I'll look at that again and see if we can really move arguments around. Also, I think for that image display function, we already have image preview function, which we use in image capture. Maybe that could be used as a.
What is image preview?
That's exactly, it's for image capture when you're getting images from a camera. Image preview function is
Oh, I
just
see. Yeah,
changing the
that's fine.
basically
That's a good
preview of
idea.
display.
Yeah, right. That's a good idea. Okay, facial features. Why on earth do we want to keep this experimental? I mean, it works quite well. I don't understand why we want to have this be experimental.
Did you see the comment?
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, yes, we can always make a better thing.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, I mean, I don't see why this is I mean, are we happy with all these names?
I think so.
Then let's make it unexperimental.
Fine.
Okay. So this one, we went through that very painful design review about this. Did we resolve everything that needs to be resolved, like how to get back a cellular automaton object and things?
There is still work to be done, but I'm with what we agreed on last time. I'm still happy to de-experimental this one. Probably more elements are going to come down the road. This is still not reflecting what we discussed last time.
Okay, fine. Sounds fine to me. Okay, image graphics. Well, is the functionality here? I mean, if I take a random image, let me just get an image here. Let me just find a good image here. All right, I'm going to screen capture something. Well, actually, we could take the horse, but I'm going to take this thing instead. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now what did that just do? What did it do? I don't understand what this just did, because that looks like an image still.
What do you mean?
Well, what is this thing?
So basically, this should be a graphics.
Okay.
But what it's doing, it's creating polygons around those lines. Currently, as the comment says, there is no heuristic for finding thin objects and then approximating them with
Okay, so look at this.
lines.
This isn't bad. But you think those are all polygons?
They are all polygons now, yeah. They're graphics complexes as you saw them. But we think we should be able to identify thin objects in an image and then approximate them with lines and Bezier curves and so forth instead with the proper thickness.
Well, that seems much more useful.
Yep. And then I think with that addition, potentially the current argument setup is not going to work well as far as design.
Let me take a look. So how does this relate to what's it called? Mesh graph or something, where you can take an object and decompose it. I mean, like, for example, I could imagine an image graph function too that would take, that's more ornate.
We do have morphological graph, which takes a binary image of a skeleton like that. I suggest you binarize and negate. That's what morphological graph is going to expect. Yep.
Okay. That wasn't totally shabby. That's not bad at all.
No.
Where are the nodes?
Well, you can style them to be bigger, but they currently look small and black to me. Those are all the nodes.
Okay, so let me just do, what do I say? If I say graph % vertex style,
Yep.
arrow, large and red. Does that not work? I don't see any vertices there.
Do we have the right-click menu on that graph? Well, but do a vertex count, the graph without a vertex. Yeah, then do orange.
Well, let's take a look. It's got vertices, all right. Why aren't we seeing them?
Yep. Why aren't we seeing them?
Why are we not seeing them?
Those are the black ends of those lines.
But look. Okay, but then why didn't this vertex style work?
That I don't know.
I have a bad feeling. I know what's happened. The reason is that this thing, yeah, it's okay. It's an interesting bug. So the issue is that this, it is looking at the nearest vertices to decide the vertex size. Okay, it shouldn't do that in this case.
Okay.
In other words, when it should be setting that so that you can see the vertices, even though some of the vertices that have been identified are very nearby. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because otherwise it was rescaling the point size down. Okay, so let's take a look at this function again. Oh yeah, that's really not the right thing. It really is much more like a mesh components type thing where you say, find me all the polygons, find me all the lines, points, whatever else.
I think so. I think we want that to take an objective rather than
well, but
like
I understand. But I mean,
colors.
I think, what is it called? Graphics mesh? What is it called? Mesh.
Which conversion are you looking for?
I'm looking
Discretized
for
graphics?
No, but I'm looking for more than that. I'm looking for the thing that turns these into a mesh of a certain dimension. I just used this yesterday. In fact, I just, what is it? Oh gosh. Oh boy.
Boundary discretized graphics?
mesh connectivity graph. Things like this. Okay. And so I can say, so that 2 is giving me, let's say I say a ball here. Why does it do that? Oh, I need to say discretize graphics. Or discretize region, I think. Oh boy. No, let's just do graph plot of that. So that should be a filled in ball with 122,000 edges, if the thing will plot. Okay, but you see that that 2 is somehow giving, it's taking connectivity between, in other words, I think there's a sense in which we need to give a target. Several of these functions have this concept of a target dimensionality of the thing we're looking at.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting to see what it did here. Okay, so that's a 3-dimensional. That's all of the, wow. If I'd done a sphere, it would have been a little bit more civilized. Magnificent. A diatom would be proud to have that as its aluminosilicate skeleton or something. Never mind. Okay. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know if that's what it needs, but okay. Okay, in any case, that's what I would do for that. But yeah. I mean, one question is, the high DPI project, did it successfully use image graphics or not?
No.
Did they try?
I don't know. The asset updates, you mean?
Yes.
I don't know.
Why don't we ask them?
Okay.
I mean, for example, the use of image graphics for that, for that very logo there, which is a bitmap, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, an interesting question is, what would it do on that very logo?
Well, again, I don't have high hopes for image graphics because those are lines.
All right. Do we understand algorithmically? Yeah, so it's really hopeless.
Yep.
We understand algorithmically what to do. That's magnificent polygon work, but not useful.
Exactly.
Do we know algorithmically what to do?
Yep.
Okay. Can you describe it?
Well, as I said, we should approximate objects of the same width all along. So in this case, for instance, we have 1 or 2 pixels roughly around.
Yeah, I understand. That's a good idea. Right. Yep, that's a good idea. And there's also the question of, when is a line a straight line?
Yes.
What heuristics are we going to use for that? And when is a line, okay, look, the things we've got are certain primitives, like when is a circle a circle? Now, this seems to me, it relates to the diagram OCR project that we have.
I agree, yes. I've been out of that for a while. I probably attended 1 meeting.
Who's involved with that?
I thought Michael. I'm not sure anymore.
Okay. I mean, because there's that. Let's find out what's happening with that, and let's see if we can merge these two things.
Okay.
I mean, clearly there's an aspect of diagram OCR which isn't OCR at all, which is that we give people drawing tools on the web and they draw things. And then that's not OCR. But this is genuine OCR. This would be a really nice thing to have, to be able to take our primitives like lines, and you know, beyond that, it's like, is it a triangle? Is it a polygon? Right?
Yep.
Wow, that would be really nice to have. If you can deliver that, that would have a lot of use in a bunch of things that we're planning for Wolfram Alpha math content and so on.
Okay.
Okay, dynamic image.
So the use of image pyramid is one thing.
Yes. But
Apart
what's the
from that,
backing for dynamic image? It's a file, is that right?
or an in-core image object, either one.
Okay. Okay. Do we think the
Honestly, I
UX of
don't.
this is adequate?
I
I
think
mean,
so.
I
Assets
haven't
are
used these at
shared.
all.
Assets are mostly shared, except from what we call a zoom bar, the scrolling bars on the sides that can also be used for zooming. You see the knobs at the ends of those scroll bars. Those
Yeah.
can be dragged and zoomed. That's something we invented.
Weird. Okay.
Very useful though.
Could you show this to Noah, who's working on the toolbar?
Sure. So apart from that, other assets are shared between dynamic image and dynamic geographics. We never really continued discussing dynamic graphics or other dynamic objects.
We need to have dynamic graphics. That should be something for Brett's agenda. Okay? We need it. We've needed it for a long time. I mean, it needs a recompute function, and that's what's tricky, but I think we should be able to do it.
Right.
Even without a recompute function, it's already useful. I mean, like with an image, you clearly can't, well, we could use machine learning to do something insane, but we can't zoom out to the point where we see more apples than they took in the photograph type thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we could do some crazy machine learning thing just for entertainment value, but that's not genuinely useful. Someone on our live stream is commenting on the point cloud to 3D object thing. And that is an interesting question. To what extent an image 3D graphics thing is possible?
Now, either region image, not image graphics, region image mesh. Those are the pair of functions that can go from image to region. So region image basically converts a region to an image or image 3D.
Wait, region, which one?
Image region. Region image. Image region is an option.
Oh boy.
It's an old option.
Oh boy, that's a mess. Okay, so then this you claim. Did we approve that? That's a really bad idea. Having region image be, no, didn't even work.
Takes a region in. What was that?
Oh, it's the image of a region. That's correct. How do I get a region from an image?
Image mesh. And that only works with binary images again.
Okay. Now what about 3D?
Works as well with binary image 3Ds.
So for example, let me show you an example. Let me get one here. Okay, I will show you something here. Which I conveniently happen to have in my session, hopefully. Okay, see that thing? Okay, our mission is to reconstruct that as a surface. Okay, so if I do list surface plot, that's what I get. Now you're telling me that there's a way to take that object. Well, I've got the 3D points for that thing. I've got that graph embedding there. That's the set of 3D points. So how would I turn that into, if I take those 3D points and I want to turn it into, let's say I want to make those points larger and turn the result into a region. How do I do
that? Turn it into an image 3D?
No, I mean, so like I can say list point plot 3D of this thing, presumably. That's probably, I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's okay. There's the point cloud. Okay. Okay, so my challenge now is to reconstruct a surface from that point cloud. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or to reconstruct, so how should I do that?
We should be able to rasterize that to a 3D image and do some stuff morphologically on the volume to clean up, fill the holes and things like that. But I don't think that's the proper way of doing this. You really somehow want a manifold around it if you really want a
Yes,
surface.
I think so, but not. I mean, I can clearly get the convex hull and things like that, but I would like to get something that is, the best reconstruction that we can get of a manifold from this.
Nothing comes to mind immediately with the stuff that we have now. With image graphics, we have a bunch of that when it comes to smoothing the polygons.
Okay, but I mean in 3D, what about in 3D?
No, mostly in 2D.
So a 3D image.
Only in 2D.
Okay, but we can also think about image graphics working on an image 3D and turning it into 3D graphics primitives.
Yes.
Which would be interesting. I mean, most image 3Ds, I don't know to what extent do scanners successfully produce image 3D objects? I mean, DICOM certainly can make an image 3D object. So if we want to make, your picture of your average bone or something as graphics primitives, we would need that.
Yep. I think that's definitely going to have the mechanics of going from a set of points to a manifold is definitely useful in various places.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried on things related to this. I've tried a variety of algorithms for manifold finding, and they've all produced garbage. I mean, that may not be surprising, given where this comes from.
So almost, so pyramids, image graphics, dynamic image, all of those are Marcus, and we'll have to prioritize what goes first, including image stitching, better image align, reconstruction of 3D object from point clouds.
Which is this?
Yes.
So does Marcus think he has algorithms for doing that?
There are algorithms proposed out there for things like that. As you said, not all of them work great, but we should start.
I'd be interested to know what Marcus has to say about this one. Why don't we send him this one?
Okay.
How do I send this to him? I could just push this to the cloud. Or actually, somebody else, Sushma, she can find this. It's in I'd really be interested to know what he has to say about this.
Okay.
Whether he thinks that any manifold algorithms. Let's see whether I can. Let me just save this. How can I give this to him in a reasonable way? I think this is fairly big. That's the problem. Let's look at how long this is. Oh, it's not that bad, actually. All right, here, I'm going to just use our technology. And then I will get that URL. The fact that there isn't a URL extractor for Cloud Object is really annoying. Okay, I will send that to you for Marcus, and I would like his comments on it.
Okay.
It may have to be permissioned for him. I'll send it, also copy to Sushma, she can set that. Actually, can't I? I can probably do this, set permissions. Oh, I don't know how to do it. Okay, let's continue here. Zoom center, what is that about?
That's an option of dynamic image. That's the initial center of dynamic image. Same with zoom factor.
The heck is
how
that
much you want it to be zoomed.
Whatever. Some Venetian, who knows what that's supposed to be. I don't even. Okay, all right, that's it for your section. Let us continue.
Dynamic image stays experimental. You're
Yes,
okay with that?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, it
All right.
needs to.
I would
And it
be
needs, because it needs
happier
to be
with
part
that.
of the dynamic graphics family,
I
and we
think
should
so.
have a meeting to discuss it.
Okay.
All right,
right.
base encode, base decode. Oh, for God's sake, why are we keeping these experimental? What's wrong
Can I
with
be
these?
excused?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, thank you very much, Shadi. Thank you, lots of wonderful functionality. Okay, what is wrong with base encode and base decode?
That we've only implemented one base, and so the design for actually having multiple bases, or even base 64 but with different, right, because there are multiple standards, is very unclear. So until we actually have more than one base,
I thought there were, okay, fair enough, I thought there were things like base. Aren't there like base 80 and base whatever else?
There's base 85. So WXF implements, but it is not exposed through base decode. Base 64, base 85, and I feel like something else, which I
So
can't.
why aren't we exposing them for in base encode and base decode?
Because we haven't had a developer to work on it. I mean, Dorian would sort of be the natural person, so if we can tap Dorian to do that.
Is it easy?
I think it should be pretty straightforward.
Okay, if he can do it in half a day, he should do it. Otherwise, he should not do it.
Okay. So, right. And of course, there are sort of multiple different versions of each base, right? Depending on whether you insist on padding, and, there might be multiple alphabets, etc. So we would need to design, like, would those all just be sort of different named formats?
I think they would just be named. I think this is just a zoo. This is just a zoo with specific animals in it. Not, I don't know what the generalization of a zoo with parameterized animals is, but I don't think those exist. Sorry. No, I mean, it's just a thing with a specific collection of of creatures, I think. Because that's what's useful, is somebody says, I've got this base 85 encoded thing, can you decode it? Now, I don't know what the relationship is between these and import formats. I mean, is there some sense in which we can say there's a base 64 import format that is a file? Does that make sense?
There is a base 64. There already is a base 64 import format. It's kind of weird because I think it tries to then it's sort of ambiguous what exactly it's trying to do, and I think it's trying to import it and then decode it and then import it as an expression, which sometimes surprises people.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't remember.
that's kind of horrifying. I mean,
at.
because that's a different thing. That's that's like, but the import elements, what the default import element is, should be discussed. Look, let's talk about this in an LCC meeting and get Dorian there, and let's talk about what these various decode, encode things should be in their relationship to import export.
Okay.
But I agree that, I mean, the only thing I would say in terms of de-experimentalizing is if we're pretty certain that the default is going to be base 64, I mean, it's not going to be one of those things where in 5 years there's a different obvious default, is there? Is it? Hey, we've got a bunch of background noise here.
I don't think so. I mean, right, we could debate of whether the specific base 64 we have implemented is the correct base 64.
Oh gosh, are there variants?
Yes, there are variants.
Ugh. Are they discoverable, or are they not discoverable? Or are they only heuristically discoverable?
It's been a while since I looked at it, so I can't tell you. Well, maybe on the decode front, they're all discoverable. It may be that in the encode, right, like the encode, because some of it has to do with padding and things like that, which I think, decode will just ignore or not ignore in the padding.
Okay.
like I said, it's been too long
Okay,
since I've looked.
take a look at it. Let's discuss it in the LCC meeting.
Okay.
All right, let's briefly look at channel stuff. Is Jesse here? Any sign of Jesse? Seems
Yeah,
to be
I'm right here. Sorry.
Okay, great. Well, it says keep experimental for everything, but what is the status of all of this?
This is basically done on the client side. The reason I suggested to keep everything experimental was because there are some necessary minor but necessary possibly breaking changes that have been made to the design, and it didn't seem right to de-experimentalize at the same time that those potentially breaking changes are made. I think.
What are those changes, and what are they? What is all this stuff? I don't even know what. I don't even remember this at all. The channel data bin. Oops. Does it have option to channel listen, which feeds channel content into a data bin? Gosh, I didn't even remember that we had that. So, I mean, all of this complexity here, and things like the channel presend function and so on. Does this all make sense or not?
By and large, it makes sense. There's a particular set of functionalities. The handler functions thing and presend function is sort of related to that, which are things that I think would be good to get rid of in the long run. The way that those work is when you create a channel listener, you can have like a callback. It's just the second argument to channel listen that gets executed locally every time a message comes in. But handler functions are pieces of code that are actually attached to the channel on the server, and then everyone who listens to the channel gets that code running on their client whenever a message comes through. So it's a callback that's part of the channel, but that runs locally.
Okay, but the use of handler functions and things like session submit is well established, and I don't understand why this thing's still experimental. That just seems bizarre to me.
Well, okay, yeah, I guess that handler functions. Well, that's the generic ref page, but it's specifically the use in channel framework that I think I
understand, but I don't understand why handler functions are still experimental to begin with. And Raj, I don't know whether that's on your list, but it should be. I mean, that just seems like it. Yeah, it seems crazy. Is Raj still with us?
Yep. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All this mechanism that is primarily security stuff for channels, does it actually make sense, or is it all crazy?
The security stuff is specifically because the handler functions thing is a security flaw, so we have to basically disable it by default. That's what that $allow external channel functions is for.
But does it sensible? I mean, does anybody care? I mean, it basically allows you to run, upon receipt of data on a channel, you can run something on the client side, right?
Yes.
And does one care? I mean,
well, one certainly wants to be able to do that. I don't think one necessarily wants that code to be attached to the channel, the server-side representation of it.
In other words, another approach would be that there's simply a packlet that defines certain standard channel handlers. And those are all you get. And those are just part of the system, and they have the same security as the system. Rather than a user being able to define a... in other words, one could make people download the channel handler independent of the channel. Just say you want to use this type of channel, download this channel handler from this place, so to speak, or it's part of the system, rather than the thing is kind of bootstrapping itself from the channel itself.
Yes, yeah. I'm not sure I would take that specific approach, but in the example of like the system that we have for the live coding competition, the code that runs locally is part of this live coding packlet that among other things just calls channel listen with a second argument. That's a callback.
Which is, but the delivery of the code that is going to be in the callback. So the thing that is the security hole or the security problem is a channel reaches out to you and says, connect to me. I'm a happy channel, but it's in fact a fish. so to speak, because the channel itself contains code that automatically runs. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, it's
disastrous
essentially, yes.
Why are we doing
Yes.
that? It just seems pointless. I mean, it seems like the only case where that would be relevant is if, assume that you had no communication. I mean, the only way I could imagine doing that is if a channel tries to connect and it literally prompts you for, do you want to run this code?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be okay. And then we don't need this whole elaborate system for preventing. I mean, how much sandboxing? Is it sandboxing that code anyway or not?
No.
I probably can't because it has to be able to do all kinds of things.
Yes.
So, I mean, it seems like the correct design is if a channel contacts you and says, I want to monkey with your system, and it's going to be this piece of code, then you separately say, okay, great, either approve it for use or download it. I think it'd be a lot better if the code was somehow visible rather than just trust me. I'm in other words, because the code is perfectly readable in most cases, well, at least it conceptually so. I don't know. It just seems like the wrong way to do it.
Well, I've never thought of or seen a reasonable, realistic application where it's actually necessary that code be transmitted in band at all.
Fair enough.
I mean, it kind of makes a cool demo, but that's all.
Yeah. Well, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if in band, look, okay. The obvious thing to do, this was not properly thought through, but the obvious thing to do is in band, simply transmit a message that says, run this code to download the client you need. Because
yeah, I mean,
if at the very beginning, if right at the outset, well, okay, so I'm imagining it in the chat kind of way of doing it. And I guess there's a notion of a channel that is purely, that's an autonomous channel that doesn't involve a human ever seeing anything. What examples do we have of that? We have various kinds of password exchange things and so on. Yeah, go ahead. What?
The only thing I can think of is whatever's being done in the service object, service connect ecosystem. I think they do something with the channel framework, and I've meant to ask, but I haven't yet.
Is Christian on this call? He might be able to.
So what we use the channel for the authentications. So in case if channel is working correctly, you just get the service website in your browser, you authenticate, and then get back to Wolfram Language. If the channel is down, we have a fallback method where you have to copy and paste some IDs.
Right, but so what's happening is, can you just explain that plumbing? I mean, you are calling, let's say, Facebook or something. Maybe Facebook doesn't even have these anymore, but it's for the authentication of an external API.
Mm-hmm.
What do you give to what? How do you do this? How does it work?
I don't know the exact details of
okay,
that.
Fine. Oh. Fine. Because I think what it's doing is it's going to that website, but it's then giving that website a callback, a pub sub callback, so to speak, so that when it delivers the authentication token that is needed, that is transmitted through a channel to the URL specified in the channel, to the channel broker URL, so that we can pick up that authentication token without you having to copy paste it.
Okay, yeah, I think I got it. It's like for three-legged OAuth when there's a user in the loop, or a browser in the loop. Christian, I will want to look at that to make sure that it still works with these changes, because the channel URL, the idea of there actually being an HTTP endpoint that you can post to send to a channel does not exist anymore.
Okay.
So if it's actually doing that, some changes will need to happen. But I'll take a look.
Well, that should happen like lickety split, because
yeah, I know.
Okay. I don't know whether the testing, Raj, that's a question for you, whether the testing protocols for authentication of external APIs, how that's working. That seems tough to do automated testing on.
Yeah,
Because it
we
involves-
always had problems with, with testing all these external protocols. Like we try to bake keys in the code. Like we look at the internal variables and try to set what keys you get. But yes, I mean, it always breaks, and it isn't the easiest, at least, thing to automate.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's sounding like from the change that Jesse is talking about, you better do a round of testing on those things and how we can automate them. I mean, between web execute and other things, it's conceivable that they could be automated, although it just seems like a horrifying moving target because it depends on the specific details of the login dialogues of different, random websites and things. Seems completely horrifying. Okay, so look, Jesse, I think it would be worth having a discussion about what the channel framework looks like if there is no security issue, if there's no weird, in other words, for example, if the channel action, right, if in other words, let's imagine that it had 5 named actions it could take. Is that realistic?
What are those named actions?
Things that we've predefined. I don't know what they are, but things where you can be sure that the remote control of your machine is not going to do anything horrifying because those are simply predefined actions that have been, vetted. Right? Those are not arbitrary code actions. Those are actions that involve, I don't know what, notebook put of some particular thing or some such other piece.
Okay, I'm curious about what those might actually be, because off the top of my head, I honestly can't think of anything that would be useful for realistic use of this.
Well, what about the streaming framework? The streaming framework has a client, right?
Yes.
Okay, so whatever that client is one of those actions, I would think. Or am I confused?
Yeah, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be associated with the channel. I mean, the notebook streaming stuff is going to be a bunch of client side code in a packlet that, among other things, among various front end stuff, happens to do a create channel, a channel listen, a channel send somewhere in its machine. But making that whole thing a part of the channel, or a piece of code that is somehow intimately associated with the channel, seems like a backwards way to design it.
Fair enough. Okay, so the channel it's like a file or something. A channel is just like a generic transport layer.
Exactly, it's a transport layer, and there should not be code directly associated with that transport layer inside.
Right. The weird thing is that this channel framework originally had the notion of a channel could reach out and tell a remote system what to do, which just seems totally wrong.
Right, and if you really want to do that, you can write it yourself. You can do that yourself. We're not preventing you from doing it.
Right, but I mean, you're like, let me give an example. So discovery for remote kernels, is that relevant? Are channels relevant to that discovery process? So, for example, if I have a broadcast, if I want to know, I've got some random machine, and the question is, are there available remote kernels to run on that machine?
Yeah. I can't see how channel framework would be relevant to that, or could ever be relevant to that with what it's designed to be. I mean, you need that's like multicast DNS sort of thing.
Yes.
That's there's the Venn diagram circles do not overlap between channel framework and any kind of discovery thing I can think of.
What about, I was looking at various concurrent programming things, like in Erlang, they have some primitive, which is some kind of registry for externally spawned, for programs that spontaneously spawn themselves on remote CPUs that then register so that other programs can know that they exist. Is there something relevant to the channel framework in that?
Well, okay, yeah, you could implement, now that I just thought about it a little bit more, but you could implement a discovery thing if you have all of these kernels that you're. I'm going back to the kernel discovery, but
right.
that if you have all of these kernels that are available to be discovered, listening on some channel, and then your discovery machine sends a message to that channel saying who's accessible, who's there, and then all of those that are there send back a message saying I'm here, here's my IP, I guess. But yeah, you could do that.
So this is some hailing frequency concept for.
Yeah, but I mean, even if they do say back, here's my IP, is that supposed to be a public IP that's accessible over the internet? I mean, you could do it whether you'd want to.
No, I'm sure that you need to have some crypto, protocol there that involves. I mean, I don't know what exactly happens, but yeah, it would need to be some multi-legged OAuth creature that can take, right? Because there's the machine. I don't immediately see how to do it, but you get what I'm saying, that you need to have somehow. I mean, if you just go to some random person's machine and start, looking around and seeing whether there's anything runnable, that's just completely crazy. But assume that there has been some authentication transaction that happened. Well,
sure. I mean, access to channels can be controlled via our permissions mechanisms. You can say only these Wolfram.
Is that right? So are they proxied through the cloud's permission mechanism?
Not on every request. When you connect to the channel broker, you send along your current cloud OAuth token, and the broker checks that on connect against the cloud, and the cloud says, yeah, that's valid. This person is who they claim to be, or not. And if they are who they claim to be for that session, the channel broker says, okay, you're Jesse. You can do whatever. Any channel that says Jesse can access it, you're allowed to. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are out of time here, but I would like to, Jesse, maybe you can set up, or we can get set up a meeting to talk about the channel framework and its uses, given that you've now apparently got is the MQTT server now in production or not? Still not yet?
No, still not yet. I was wrapping up the client because of the code freeze deadline on that, but the MQTT server is very close to finished. It's just deployment things that are left, like getting the database working in a clustered environment.
What is the throughput that we expect for the MQTT server? Is it huge?
I don't have a good number on that because I've had difficulty doing good load testing, but it's it's significantly better. Like channel send and listen actions are on the order of like 8 times speed they were on the old server.
Yeah, but the question is really throughput. I mean, can we send gigabytes through this thing?
Well, I'll get back to you as soon as I'm able to send gigabytes. I mean, the bottleneck for load testing ends up being like your local network connection and connecting to the server. It's on my to-do list to do decent load testing. I just had difficulty with it so far.
Fair enough. Okay, sounds good. All right, we should wrap this up here. Thanks, guys. It is one of these days, Raj, we'll have one of these experimentalization meetings where we just go through and hit I didn't even realize that these things actually go green. That's a very cool feature. I want to do more of that.
Yep.
But it's still useful to understand where we're at with these functions. Very good. Thanks a lot. Thanks to folks on the live stream as well. See you all soon.